Hello again, this is Hellcry, and yet again we're continuing the series on analyzing and understanding the story of Y2K, a postmodern RPG. If you haven't seen the previous videos, there's a link to the playlist in the description. I highly recommend it. And once more, I'll explain that I'll be covering 1.0, the original release of the game. There are some changes in later versions, and it'll be something I cover separately. Starting in Chapter 3, Alex reflects on how he was rude to Rory, and then immediately acts rudely in the same manner to his mother. I say in the same manner here because we have two scenes that are presented exactly the same way. I want you to keep these scenes in mind because they do have a lot of importance later. Alex fails to find a job and goes home. But suddenly, at night, Alex is visited by a soul survivor in his house. He's led to this radio tower in his backyard and finds Mystical Ultima LP Legend. What's happening with the record is extremely complex, and I will get into that when we visit Vela's mine dungeon. So, here we are. Alex looks to get the gang back together for one last heist, and seemingly forgets where Michael lives, despite Michael telling him that he'll remember where he lives.
That was weird. I've known Michael forever, and I swear to God, he always lived in that house.
Is Michael home?
Yeah, but he's sick. I'll let him know you rang the doorbell.
Right, okay. Cool.
Around the same time, a post on ONISM appears, where Michael posts this.
This is the first I'm hearing of this. Has anyone gone to see if they could find the ghost? If you do, please confirm the appearance of the ghost or upload some photos. I'll try and get out there this weekend, but I'm stuck inside studying for the SATs all week.
However, at the beginning of the story, Michael said he already took the SATs.
Just took the SATs, that's about it.
And in the scene, 8 days after Alex yelled at Rory, he mentions that Michael is in his room pretending to study.
Michael was stuck in his house, pretending to study for finals.
And I think this is a great time to explain Michael's story. To understand who Michael is and what he's doing, you have to read a lot of ONISM posts.
Oh, I'm SNES Man 99. I think that's the first time I've had to say that out loud. Michael is Veriformer, and Vela isn't cool enough to go on the message board.
The Michael that we follow through the story is known as Veriformer. So we're going to cover quite a few posts, and there's going to be a lot of reading involved. Luckily, I had all of these posts voiced by a couple of my good friends.
Sometimes we have to pretend to be people we aren't just to convince others to keep us company. I think that's tragic, but it's the reality of being a subnormal human. For some, our thoughts can be weird and divisive. There are things we know to be true that others will never be able to see as fact.
A great place to start would be the post that Rory makes, a car accident from when I was a child. Here, Michael tells a story from his childhood.
I swear I make a thread like this once a week, but I can't help but be compelled to see everyone's first experience with the surreal. When I was a kid, I had an obsession with computers. I still do. My dad had this word processor with a tiny screen, where you could see maybe like 10 to 15 words at a time, and he'd work on it, and when he was done, I was allowed to use it. So I started writing stories.
This lines up with some stuff we're told in the story itself.
Now my dad pays me to proofread the things he writes.
I remember how it goes. The Incandenza family appear to be ordinary people during day-to-day life, but when photographed, they look distorted. On St. Patrick's Day of 1992, the family is photographed at a local parade. The next day, the family moves out. Some kids decide to break into the house and see if they left anything. They did, in fact. An old toy piano. After trading some cards for the toy piano, the main character acquires it from the kids who stole it. He realizes that the curse of the peculiar piano is true and calls in his lover, a senior named Alexander, to help him. They're talking, and she reveals that she is one of the Incandenzas. Alex Incandenza. Alex examines the piano and willingly submits herself to the curse. The next day, I met a neighbor whose name was Alex. Ever since then, I've realized that thought had power. I've realized that writing things and believing them can make them true.
There's another post by Michael that I want to cover. but I will briefly explain what's going on here. In this post, Michael is obviously recounting this fictional story he wrote. However, what's important to note here is the main character being named Mike, a nickname for people named Michael, and his lover being named Alexandra. And Michael, noticing it's kind of odd, he meets a stranger named Alex. Following that, we have a post titled, "A Weird Game a Cutie's Brother Made."
I've been seeing this girl. She's my girlfriend yet, but I'm working on it. She's cool, but her family is really weird. They don't really talk when I go over to her house. Her brother has something wrong with him. Some form of autism, I'd guess. She tells me her brother's really into making computer games. Apparently, he wants to make a game that feels like the game itself is possessed by a spirit. I didn't really know what that meant. A few months go by, still not much like with the girl, but enjoying her platonic company. So, on Wednesday, the girl invites me over to play the game, and we boot it up on his computer. Game runs from DOS. Graphics are shit, but there's something there, something that cut really deep. In the game, nobody else knows that your character is under a curse, except for him. The curse is super weird because you wouldn't expect it to really be that big of a deal. Whenever you go to pick up a phone in the game, you hear this screaming hiss in your ear. It was really cool. The kid had set it up so that it only came out of one speaker. It felt really realistic. Every time you try and leave your home to continue the quest, people keep calling you on your telephone. You can't hear what they're saying because they're screaming that hiss at you. So, anyway, I go home, and I plan on calling the girl later that night. But when I go to pick up the phone, I swear I hear that hiss. It's really faint, but my heart starts racing and I can't call her.
Once again, this post is a bit paraphrased, but with what we know about Alex, the story being told here doesn't seem out of the question to assume that the girl in the situation would be Alex's sister, and that Alex is the person who put together this game that Michael is speaking about. An aspect of the story that a lot of people get hung up on is how parts of Michael's story don't seem to make sense.
RPG games are seriously the best! Chrono Trigger, Lufia 2, Secret of Mana! Those games are like the holy grail of my youth!
And with a lot of these lines not having the context that you need through playing the game several times and reading ONISM, they seem like odd mistakes. We're going to jump around the story here a bit to sort of explain more about Michael using what Alex says about him.
And then Michael. When did Michael move back to Frankton?
Didn't Michael move away when he was 10?
When did he move away? Michael. 19, a tall, witty, brown-haired white guy. He was a few years younger than me, but I never felt like there was much of an age gap when we hung out. He was a good kid, a bit younger than me, and usually worth a laugh or two. My hand covered my eyes to block the sunlight to see him better. I thought back to the last time I had seen him. For some reason, I couldn't place any memories of him since before high school. Michael had moved to the area when he was 12, 1991. The year Michael Stipe of REM sang Losing My Religion.
Ah! It's your best childhood friend. Think back to when you met me. We were kids. I think Losing My Religion by REM had just become a big hit.
Michael was my best friend until I was... Didn't he move when I was 12? When did he move back to Frankton?
Why is Michael back in Frankton? Didn't they move to Canada when his dad got that publishing deal?
He sold his house, right? Didn't a cute girl move in there?
Come to think of it, didn't you and Michael have a falling out? He moved away, you went to hang out with him, and he had given you the wrong address or something like that?
Yeah, sort of. He had me meet him at a mall near his house, and when I got there, he never showed up. That was the last I heard of him.
Some of the exact timing doesn't match up here. With these, I feel it gives enough context to kind of explain who Michael is as a character. From the posts and what Alex referred to happening, even offhandedly mentioning that he was younger than Michael at the time, it sort of shows that Michael could have been someone that Alex's sister was dating, or at the very least, somebody she was close with. And in some of his posts, Michael doesn't seem particularly close with the Alex who is the younger brother, but does take interest in what he's doing. Now, with this next part, I'm gonna admit, it's gonna sound like I'm getting ahead of myself, but these are things I will explain later. But if I don't mention this here, I won't be able to explain to you what's going on with Michael's story. Alex is a person who has been mostly ignored by his parents. They love him, they take care of him, they even made sure he went to college. But they don't have an active role in his life. So I think in this scenario, Alex is kind of looking at his sister and her friend as almost replacements for this connection. By doing this, in his mind, looking at the situation and the relationships he has with Michael in a different way than what's actually there. This connection Alex is longing for in the story results in him putting Michael in an endless state of being 19, right before he moves away to Canada. Because if his best childhood friend, the one person who cares about him, moves away to Canada, then he won't be in his life anymore. And this is why Michael's always studying for the SATs. This is why there's so many time discrepancies with their relationship. There's even more to the relationship Alex has with Michael. When you consider the way Alex constructs his reality based off things Michael has created. Look at ONISM, for example. We've already seen how some posts there end up being twisted into a new reality that Alex is presenting us. This relationship is almost like Michael being an artist, and Alex being a member of the audience who projects meaning onto the art for himself. I believe this is to show that he really admires Michael, but at the same time, given some other scenes, it seems he also thinks Michael believes that he's better than everyone else. There's a few more things to cover about Michael, but I think I've given you most of what you need to understand him. I'll talk about parallel lives and protoforms in the future, but today I'm going to end this video and thank Ropesnek for providing the voice for Chronocrossed, Linguistic Spaceship for providing the voice for Veriformer, and once again, thank Ropesnek for his amazing character art. And the way you can support these people will be linked in the description, so please support my homies. I'll see you next time.